U.S. urged to honor ceasefire terms involving Lebanon, says Iran's parliamentary speaker, Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf, has called on the United States to respect and fully adhere to a ceasefire agreement that includes Lebanon, emphasizing the importance of regional stability and collective resistance among Iran-aligned groups. In a statement shared on the social media platform X, Ghalibaf stressed that any ceasefire arrangement in the region must not overlook Lebanon's role or the ongoing tensions affecting it. He argued that a sustainable peace can only be achieved if all relevant parties are included and their concerns addressed fairly. Ghalibaf highlighted what he described as the steadfast struggle of Hezbollah, the Iran-backed organization based in Lebanon. According to him, Hezbollah's continued resistance has been a decisive factor in pushing toward what he called a comprehensive ceasefire in Lebanon. He framed the group's actions as part of a broader effort to counter external pressures and defend regional sovereignty. The Iranian speaker also referenced the so-called axis of resistance, a term widely used by Iranian officials to describe a network of allied groups across the Middle East. This alliance includes organizations such as Hamas, Houthis in Yemen, and various Iraqi Shia militias. Ghalibaf emphasized that these groups operate with a shared sense of purpose, stating that they are one soul, both in war and in ceasefire. This characterization reflects Iran's broader strategic narrative, which portrays these groups as unified in their opposition to Western and Israeli influence in the region. By describing them as interconnected, Ghalibaf reinforced the idea that developments in one area, such as Lebanon, cannot be separated from the wider geopolitical dynamics affecting the Middle East. Ghalibaf's remarks also included a pointed message directed at the United States. He urged Washington to reconsider what he referred to as its Israel-first approach, suggesting that such a policy undermines broader peace efforts and contributes to instability. While he did not elaborate in detail, the comment reflects long-standing criticism from Iranian officials, who argue that U.S. support for Israel often comes at the expense of balanced diplomacy in the region. The call for U.S. compliance with a ceasefire agreement highlights ongoing tensions between Iran and the United States over their respective roles in Middle Eastern conflicts. Iran has consistently positioned itself as a supporter of resistance movements, while the U.S. has maintained alliances with Israel and other regional partners. These competing interests have often complicated efforts to establish lasting peace agreements. Lebanon, in particular, remains a critical focal point in these dynamics. The country has experienced repeated periods of conflict and political instability, with Hezbollah playing a significant role both militarily and politically. Any ceasefire involving Lebanon is therefore seen as a sensitive and complex matter, requiring careful negotiation and cooperation among multiple stakeholders. Ghalibaf's statement suggests that Iran views Hezbollah's influence in Lebanon as legitimate and central to any peace process. This perspective contrasts sharply with that of the United States and several of its allies, which designate Hezbollah as a terrorist organization. Such differing views continue to pose challenges for diplomatic engagement and conflict resolution. The broader concept of a ceasefire in the region is also tied to ongoing conflicts involving Gaza, Israel, and other areas where groups associated with the axis of resistance are active. By linking Lebanon to a wider ceasefire framework, Ghalibaf appears to be advocating for a more integrated approach to de-escalation, one that acknowledges the interconnected nature of these conflicts. Analysts note that statements like Ghalibaf's are often aimed at reinforcing domestic and regional support while also signaling Iran's position to international audiences. By emphasizing unity among allied groups and calling for U.S. policy changes, Iran seeks to assert its influence and shape the narrative around peace negotiations. At the same time, the effectiveness of such calls depends largely on the willingness of all parties involved to engage in meaningful dialogue. Ceasefire agreements are inherently fragile, particularly in regions with deep-rooted political and ideological divisions. Ensuring compliance requires not only formal agreements but also trust and cooperation, elements that are often in short supply. The United States has not immediately responded to Ghalibaf's latest remarks, but its stance on regional conflicts has traditionally emphasized security for Israel and efforts to counter groups it considers destabilizing. Whether Washington will adjust its approach in response to such statements remains uncertain. In conclusion, Galabaf's comments underscore the complexities of achieving peace in the Middle East. His call for the U.S. to comply with a ceasefire that includes Lebanon reflects Iran's broader strategic priorities and its support for allied groups across the region. As tensions persist and diplomatic efforts continue, the path toward a comprehensive and lasting ceasefire remains challenging. Shaped by competing interests and deeply entrenched positions on all sides.